Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Road Warrior. My name is Sean, and this is Kato, and we're going to talk to you today about the costs associated with living in an RV. I know it's a very popular topic. A lot of people have a lot of questions surrounding it, as did we. So now we've been living full-time in our RV for about 3.5 months, and so we can really give you a good detailed report on the costs that are associated with it, the pros and cons of living in an RV opposed to a house, and all that good stuff. So maybe let's start out with what costs are different than you would have when living in a house, right? Because there's going to be a lot of the same costs. I mean, living in an RV, you have your monthly payment unless you pay cash for an RV. And it kind of goes the same way with a house, right? If you have a house payment or if you paid cash. So, the payment is really going to depend on how much your RV costs, and same thing as a house. So, with RVs, you can finance, and you can finance for up to 20 years, which is a long time. So, there's RVs that range in price from $10,000 and all the way up to millions of dollars. So, if you're looking in that mid-range, which is the $100,000 mark, which is where a lot of people seem to maybe find themselves, you can finance that over 20 years. And if you're fortunate enough to be able to pay cash, hey, even better. But, so that's one expense, is the cost of the RV itself. And then you have other expenses, like if you're going to have a tow vehicle, if you're going to tow a vehicle, if you get a Class A or a Class B or a Class C, that you're actually going to pull another vehicle, or if you're going to be like us and pull a trailer. We have a fifth wheel trailer, so in order for us to get around with our size rig, we needed a dually pickup truck. So, you can again decide which route you want to go, and you can buy a small car and tow that around, or if you're like us, you're going to need to buy a big pickup truck, and that truck can vary in price as well. I mean, we looked at used trucks versus new. We ended up purchasing a new truck because we wanted something under warranty and something that was very comfortable and could tow our rig no problem. But again, you can buy a $10,000 vehicle, or you could buy a $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 vehicle. It's really up to you. So you've got your car, you've got your motorhome or your trailer that you're going to live in, and those costs are really up to you. From there, what other costs do we have?
The park where we stay at.
So you can choose when you're living in an RV to stay at an actual park, like we do. The majority of the time we stay at an RV park, and parks range in price as well. I mean, you can stay in some parks for $15 a night that may not have full hookups, but if you're looking for full hookups, which if you're going to stay in a park, most people prefer to be fully hooked up with water, electric, and sewage, you're typically going to find that full hookup's going to be at least $30. Yeah. In some areas in prime season, you may pay $80 a night, which we won't do. But there's a wide range in park prices, and then there's driveway surfing, which is staying at friends' homes and plugging into their electric. And there's boondocking, which we haven't done so much of. We've just pretty much done some overnight stays at truck stops or Walmarts when we're traveling from point A to point B. But, the costs of RV living is really going to be up to you. It really depends on how you're going to do it, where you're going to stay, what you want to do. And that's with a lot of things in life. You can travel in first class luxury, or you can rough it. And we kind of like to go in the middle somewhere. For us, that's we're looking for something, we're looking to be comfortable but not spend major bucks on campgrounds or what we're doing. So aside from costs of where you're staying, what else? You've got,
You still get your groceries.
which is going to be no real different than if you lived in a house. I mean, obviously, if you're traveling to different places, you may not be as familiar with the stores. But groceries are going to be pretty much the same. I mean, if as long as you have an RV that's got a decent kitchen, you're going to be able to cook at home. I mean, we do, and we eat out.
I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it also depends on your diet. The things that you want to eat. For example, like if you want to get organic, certain places could be a little more expensive depending on, the season and things like that. So, yeah.
All right. So, other than food, we've got travel costs, right? So that again is going to be variable. I mean, it really depends on how much you travel. We have gotten now into a rhythm that we like where we're traveling between point A and point B about every 2 weeks. 2 weeks for us is good. It gives us enough time to kind of decompress and unwind, feel out an area, and then, if we want to stay more, we can always extend our stay, but really depends on what you want to do. We know people that pack up and go somewhere else every single day.
It's crazy. For us. Anyways.
For us, yeah. I mean, well, again, it comes down to the type of rig you have.
Yeah.
I mean, we bought as big of a rig as you can get so that we have plenty of space for our business needs.
The dogs.
Our toys. We wanted to live as closely to a house as possible and be very comfortable, because for us, we want to, do this inevitably. We don't want to, indefinitely, I should say. We don't want to have an end game in sight. This is our life. So we want to be comfortable.
Plus, there are days where we stay inside all the time, so we want to make sure that we are comfortable. I mean, we work on the computer, so we want to make sure that we're comfortable and it feels like a home, and, it's not too crowded, so it works.
Yeah, so we have a big rig, and so we don't want to move all the time. It's a little bit of a hassle if you're trying to move all the time. So, fuel, I mean, it adds up if you're constantly moving. I mean, we just did a trip from North Florida to Connecticut, and fuel was close to $600, and the tolls, because we were in the Northeast, were $210. So, that can add up really quick. In one day of travel, we spent close to $1,000 between food, fuel, and tolls. And so, we like to stay place. We're not in a rush to go from place to place. Aside from fuel, we have, you have electricity, you have propane, you have water. So, again, that really depends on where you're staying, if it's a park or if you're boondocking. It also depends on the climate. So, in the Northeast, if it's cold, you're going to be using up some propane. If you're staying at RV parks, you can utilize electric, and typically that's included in your fee. Sometimes it's not. So, instead of having a house where you have all these, electric bill, water bill, gas or propane bill, you have all these separate bills. Typically, you're going to have, an RV park bill, whatever it is, wherever you're staying, and then you're going to have propane, which really depends on how much you use and if your appliances run off propane, that sort of thing. But we don't use a ton of propane. Cooking on it, which we do every day, doesn't really use up a lot. Our water heater runs off propane if we're not plugged in. Our refrigerator does as well. So we have a lot of things that can run off of it, but we really don't use much, so that's not going to be a huge expense. Aside from that, what else?
I mean, the doggies sometimes. I mean, if you travel and if they get some sort of sickness or they're not well, those can be like your vet bills. So but we try to keep our dogs in all natural things. So that hasn't really been a huge spends, I don't think.
No, and I think that's going to be, whether you're living in a house or an RV, it's going to be pretty typical. It's not going to change so much when you're on the road. So other things, while you're traveling, you're typically going to want to do new things, try new things in the area. So you have activities, and if you're like us too, you like food, so you might want to try some of the local cuisine. So, those are some extra expenses that you will have if you're, the point of travel is to experience the different things in that area and the culture. So, doing activities, if you're in the mountains, maybe you're going to do some whitewater rafting.
Which we did. It was fun.
We did. And, you're going to want to try the food in different places. We're in Nashville right now, so, some good southern food. We're going to want to go see the nightlife and see people sing and perform. And so you're going to have some extra expenses, you're going to try those new things. But living in an RV, the benefit is, for me, I lived in my same home for 12 years. I had a mortgage for 12 years, and the real estate market doesn't always go up. And even though I was in a very, very popular place like South Florida, after 12 years I was still upside down on my home, and I ended up walking away with nothing. And that whole time I made bigger payments that I would have if I had been renting. So if I had been making payments on an RV, although they do depreciate, I still would have been better off, because after 12 years the RV would have been paid off and I would have owned it outright. So you can look at that either way, but you don't pay taxes on an RV, so you're going to save money that way instead of paying tax on real estate. That is one benefit. RVs are typically going to be less expensive as far as paying upfront, or the purchase price is typically going to be less expensive than what you would pay for a home. Now, obviously, there's some cases where that's not going to be true, but for the most part, an RV is going to be cheaper than it would be to buy a home.
Correct.
So up front, you can save some money. RVs might be easier to sell if you ever want to get into a different one than selling a house. And if you decide you don't like RVing, you can easily go back to living in a house, which, for people that ask us, well, should we do it? Should we not do it? I say do it. I mean, what do you have to lose? I mean, if you don't like it, you can always go back to living in a house and doing that lifestyle. But if you've never lived in an RV, it's definitely worth trying. It's not for everyone. I mean, there's challenges and daily things that you have to do that make life a little bit more difficult than living in a house where everything is turnkey. But for people that live in an RV and are adventurous and like to travel, I'd say it's definitely one of the best ways to see the country, to experience it, because you get to go to those off the beaten path type places. You find and discover new things that you never would during your vacation that you take a few times a year or a couple times a year. You just never would end up in these places. And in the last 3.5 months, I mean, the majority of the places I've been, I wouldn't have ever taken a vacation to. And that's the truth. Especially at the time of the year that we did them. I just wouldn't have taken a vacation to these places, but we ended up doing some really amazing things and experiencing some things that, I definitely absolutely loved.
And more than experiencing things, it's more like experiencing nature, which we don't get to do much, or people don't get to do much when you have a 9 to 5, or, you live that kind of a lifestyle.
Yeah. And I think, finally, as far as costs go, maintenance. You're going to have maintenance with a house if you own a house, and with RVing, there's maintenance. most RVs aren't made to be lived in, or I don't think really many are made to be lived in, so you're going to have things break a lot more frequently. And there is a lot of maintenance just keeping up with things. But if you live in a house, depending on the size of your house and where you live, you're going to have maintenance as well. And you can do a lot of the maintenance yourself, or you can pay somebody, and that goes for RVing and living in a house. Thanks for joining us on another episode. As always, if you have any questions or comments, leave them below, and we look forward to talking with you again next month.